Good
Good morning.
good morning, Rebecca. Good morning, Monica. Good morning, Edgar.
Good morning.
Let's
Good
see.
morning.
Good morning.
And Kenya that is connecting. Let's see. I accepted Kenya first. She's want to be connected. I don't know why. Maybe her connection. Good morning. And the last one will be Ricardo. Okay, so we are going to start with the attendance. I'm going to show you the attendance on the screen so you say present when you hear your name. Okay, Catalina Alvarado. It's not here. Kenya Arce.
Present.
Xochitl. Xochitl, no. Jorge.
Present, teacher.
Good. Grecia. I think the Grecia is center. No, Carla. Okay, Rebecca.
Present.
And Elida.
Presente.
Next one. Rigoberto.
Presente.
Next one. Alfonso. Alfonso. No. Claudia.
Present.
Douglas. Here. Carla.
Present.
There was a blackout.
Pueden ir a dormirse otra vez.
No. I had a blackout. A blackout. Apagón. But I'm back. I was sending a message. I said probably I would have more than 5 minutes, but it was immediately. The light went off and it returned. Okay, so I was in attendance. I will show it. So I was saying Joanna. No, Harrison. He went to sleep for real, but he was there. Edgar,
Present.
Oscar,
Here, teacher.
Ricardo Peña,
Present.
Azalia,
Present.
Allison. Oh, she's not here. Monica.
Present.
Good. And let me check the last people that entered. Grecia.
Teacher, I'm so sorry. Good morning, but I'm here.
Let me see.
Sochi.
Sochi. Catalina is not here. No. Catalina, no. Alfonso.
Present.
Douglas. Douglas, Joanna, and Allison? No? Okay, so that's the first part of the attendance. Now, today's topic is really important, really, really important, because probably right now you know how to say things like I go to the supermarket, I play video games, I visit my friends, I watch movies. So you're describing routines. When you describe routines, you also, okay, Roberto, okay. Um, so when you describe routines, you do it like that. I go, I play, I eat, I swim, and like that. Or Grecia goes, Grecia swims, or she goes, she swims, and like that. So that is okay. But sometimes you need other words that are going to help you to describe that routine. Yes? And those are frequency. That frequency is going to be general frequency or specific frequency. So I'm going to share the book so that you can see it, and we will see those things. They are two. We are going to check only one today, and I will tell you why. Okay, so the first one, and this is very important, is general frequency. I'm trying to share the screen, but just give me a second while it opens the window. The first one is general. And when I say general, it's like when you say always, sometimes, usually, often, and like that. A specific is when you say once, twice, three times, four times. For example, I can ask Monica, Monica, how often do you go to the beach? How often do you go to the beach?
Maybe once a year.
Okay, so she's saying maybe once a year. Is that general or specific?
A specific.
Exactly, it is specific. How do you know that it's specific? Because you are telling me how many times you go in a year. If Monica wants to give me information in general, she's not going to say once a year. She will say probably hardly ever, because once a year is hardly ever. There are people that go every weekend, and that is almost always, yes, or usually, or sometimes, or seldom. But in her case, she's saying once a year. So once a year is almost never. But that frequency, and this is the important thing, when you express frequency, it's not like the same frequency for all people. And you will say, why? Because, for example, if you ask, let's say, if you ask Rigoberto, Rigoberto, how often do you play basketball? And Rigoberto says, I sometimes play basketball. Sometimes for Rigoberto can be maybe three times in a week. But sometimes for Claudia is going to be once a week. So the frequency that every person has might be considered different. So that's why you have general that you imagine sometimes, okay, but you don't have very clear the days that this person performs the action. But if you say once a week, 3 times a week or 4 times a week, that is very specific. So this is what we got for today. And this one says, do you have a conversation between Ben and Jeff? Yes, between Ben and Jeff. So I'm going to read it for you, and then you can ask me about, oops, sorry, it's not this one. It is the next one. It's this one. So this is the conversation between John and Anne. I'm going to read it for you, then you ask me about the vocabulary in the conversation. It says, how often do you check your email? Every 2 hours. And you? Well, I try to check it as often as I can. And how often do you call your clients? I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients? Yes, I always call them first thing in the morning. I believe it is important to have contact with them all the time. You're right. I would read it again. How often do you check your email? Every 2 hours. And you? Well, I try to check it as often as I can. And how often do you call your clients? I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients? Yes, I always call them first thing in the morning. I believe it is important to have contact with them all the time. You are right. Now, questions about vocabulary in that conversation?
What is often?
Often means a menudo.
Thank
Okay, another one. No more? Okay, so I'm going to ask you, Carla, what's the meaning of I believe? I believe. Carla?
Mm, sí, repeat, please.
What's the meaning of believe? Believe, believe. In the sentence it says, I believe it is important to have contact with them all the time.
Ah, es que no sé escribir. Es que no sé.
So
Es que sé que
that
creer, va, que sé que creer, believe, pero no sé,
what
I
is that?
believe. ¿En qué
I
creo?
believe.
Perdón.
Yes. Creo, considero, I believe it is important to have contact with them all the time. Okay, good. And when you say you are right, Carla, what's the meaning of you are right?
What is the meaning? All right.
Yes, that's my question. You are right. What does it mean? ¿Qué significa? You are right.
No sé. No sé.
Creo que es tienes razón o tienes la razón.
Exactly. Tienes razón. Estás en lo correcto. You are right. Yes? Okay, thank you, Carla. Ask me. I always say, if you don't know the meaning of the words, ask me. Por eso les digo, si no saben el significado de alguna palabra cuando estemos en la parte de conversación, pregunten, porque ese vocabulario es el que les va a ayudar a ustedes a entender
Teacher,
no ante la conversación, sino que lo que sigue. ¿Y eso, Gerson?
when we use as often as, hay que decir
Ah, that's another one. As often as, you're saying tan seguido como, or tan a menudo como, ¿sí? Tan a menudo como. Es bastante común escuchar una expresión, incluso cuando la estaba leyendo les dije eso y después se lo volví a decir como tenía que ser. Es as soon as. As soon as es una expresión bastante común que significa tan pronto como. As soon as possible. Tan pronto como sea posible. As soon as I can. Tan pronto como pueda. En este caso, as often as I can. As often as I can. Tan a menudo como pueda o como me sea posible. O tan seguido como me sea posible. Yes? Another one? No. Okay. So I will read it last time. I need that you check where I stop exactly. Check where I stop, where I make pauses. Because the same way that I read it, you have to read it too. So, how often do you check your email? Every 2 hours. And you? Well, I try to check it as often as I can. And how often do you call your clients? I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients? Yes, I always call them first thing in the morning. I believe it is important to have contact with them all the time. You are right. Now it's your turn. Harrison is gonna be John, and Gracia is gonna be Anne.
Okay. How often do you check your email?
Every 2 hours. And you?
Well, I try to check it as often as I can. How often do you call your client?
I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients?
Yes, I always call them first things in the morning. I believe it's important to have contact with them all the time.
You are right.
Good. Only the pronunciation it is once. 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 The meaning of once is una vez. Once a week. So as I was saying at the beginning, we are going to have general frequency and specific frequency. In this conversation, we have the two frequencies. General, when we say often, usually, always. Specific, once a week. Yes, once a week. Una vez a la semana. Once a week. Good. Next one. Edgar is gonna be John and Rebecca is gonna be Anne.
Okay. How often do you check your email?
Every 2 hours. And you?
Well, I try to check this as often as I can. How often do you call to your clients?
I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients?
Yes, I always call them first thing in the morning. I believe it's important to have contact with them all the time.
You are right.
Good, good, good. Thank you. Next one. Elida is going to be Anne and Oscar is going to be John.
How often do you check your email?
Every 2 hours. And you?
Well, I try to check it as often as I can. And how often do you call your clients?
I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients?
Yes, I always call them first thing in the morning. I believe it is important to have contact with them all the time.
You're right.
Okay, the pronunciation, Oscar, it is as often as I can. I can. No, I can. As often as I can. Then the other one is when you say always, always, always. Not always, always. And the other one is contact with them, with them, with them, with them. Yes? Good. Next person and the last one would be Asalia. Asalia is gonna be N. And let's see. I guess we have Ricardo. Ricardo Peña, you're gonna be John. So let's listen to that.
Okay. How often do you check your email?
Every 2 hours, and you?
Well, I try to check it as often as I can. And how often do you call your clients?
I often call them once a week on Monday, but I usually call them on Friday to check their order. Do you call clients?
Yes, I always call them first thing in the morning. I believe it's important to have contact with them all the time.
You are right.
Good job. Thank you. So from this conversation, we have two questions. First question is gonna be for Jorge Carranza, and the second one is gonna be for Carla. First one, Jorge. According to the conversation, how often does Anne check her email?
Um, and I check the emails 2 hours
Every
every 2 hours.
huh. So Anne checks with the S. Anne checks her email
Yeah.
every 2 hours. Okay, good.
Mm.
Now, Carla, why is it important to check the email every day? Why do you think or do you believe that it's important to check your email every day, Carla?
Mm, ah, sobre- no sé si I check Gmail um, because o sea, yo no chequeo mi correo, pero bueno, um, because no sé por qué puede ser importante. No sé cómo decir que es por el trabajo, no sé, for work, o for job,
For work. For work.
for work.
Yes. So, thank you, Carla. So she said, I check emails because it is important for work. Could be. Let's see, Alfonso, why do you check your email every day? Or if it is important and why? Why is it important?
Because I check information for the work.
Good, because I check information from work. Good. Joanna, why do you check your email or why do you think that it is important to check emails?
Um, because it's important for me to have the answer the claims.
Oh, because it's important for me to have answers from clients. From
Sorry.
clients. Good, Joanna, good. Monica, why do you think it is important?
I think important because I receive news, the work and university.
Good, because I receive news from work and university. Good. And the last one, Kenya, why do you think it is important?
Okay. For me, it is important because everything is delayed. And maybe I had to pay for estadías. I don't know cómo se dice estadías.
Stay.
Okay, state and my import opportunities are delayed.
Okay, yeah, sometimes you receive important information like when you shop something. So maybe there is a delay, as you're saying, so you are receiving that information. Good. Now, Douglas, how often do you check your email?
I check my email usually every 1 hour.
Every hour?
Yeah.
Okay. Harrison, what about you?
I often check my email uh, every moment, teacher,
Okay.
because I need to be communicate with my member or my AN
Or your
every moment. Yes, I think.
good, good. Allison, the opposite. How often do you send emails?
I often send emails, but it's my email, right? No, my job email.
It
Or
could be your personal email.
okay, in
Oh,
my personal, maybe like 3 emails in the day.
okay, so 3 emails a day
Mm-hmm.
or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Good, Allison. Good. Thank you. So all those things that you were describing were expressing frequency. And this is the frequency that I told you that we would study today. So these are called frequency adverbs. Yes, frequency adverbs. And how do we use frequency adverbs? Well, we use the frequency adverbs to say how frequently an activity happens. So you want to describe how often you do something. For example, always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, hardly ever, or rarely, and never. Obviously, let me see, there is another one that is missing. Another one can be almost always is missing over there. Almost never is missing there too. Yes? So I will type them so that you can take notes about it. Almost always. And the other one is almost never. Almost always and almost never. So those are the two frequency adverbs that are not over here, but you can also use them. Almost always and almost never. So now let's check the meaning of these adverbs. So the first one is always. When you say always, you're saying siempre. Always. Siempre. Always. Next one, usually. Usually, usualmente. Usually. Normally, normalmente. Often, often, a menudo o seguido. Sometimes, sometimes, algunas veces. Occasionally, ocasionalmente, o en ocasiones, you can say, occasionally. Seldom, seldom is like if you say pocas veces o
Raramente.
rara vez, ajá, rara vez. seldom. Hardly ever and rarely. Ellos también significan eso, como pocas veces o rara vez. Hardly ever and rarely. And the last one, never. Never, nunca. And if you check the chat, I sent you the next two words. Almost always, casi siempre. Almost never, casi nunca. Yes? So if we go to the frequency, you have that always is 100% of the times. Always. Usually 90%. Almost always could be like 95%. Then you have normally 80% of the times, often 70%, sometimes 50, occasionally 30%, seldom 10%, hardly ever, rarely 5%, almost never can be also a 5%, and then never 0%. And there you have some examples on the right. So Alfonso, you're going to read from number 1 to number 3. Grecia, you're going to read from number 4 to number 6. And Monica, you're going to read from number 7 to number 9. The examples that you have on the right.
Vamos a leer, perdón, del 1 al 3.
Yes.
Estos que están acá, always.
The examples on the right. Los ejemplos de las...
I always get up at 5 o'clock. He usually drives to work. She normally checks her email.
Good, next one.
I often have breakfast at work. She sometimes uses the microwave. Microwave. She sometimes uses the microwave. And ¿cómo dijo que se pronunciaba, teacher?
Occasionally.
I occasionally work overtime.
Next one. Good.
We seldom take calls at work. She rarely has conference, and I never get late to work.
Okay, good, thank you. So something important here is to remember that when you say he, she, or it, you need the S in the verb. So for example, the number 1, you're saying I. You don't use the S, so you only say I always get up. But in the number 2, you're saying he. So if you have he, you need to use the S in the verb. He usually drives to work. Number 3, you have she. So you need to mention the S in the verb. She normally checks her email. Number 4, I. So no S. I often have breakfast at work. Next one, she. Oh, so she with the S. She sometimes uses the microwave. Microwave is microondas, or no microondas, microwave oven. I occasionally work. I work. We seldom take. No S, because the S is only for he, one, she, one, it, one. Next one, he rarely has. So you use the S because you're saying he. And the last one, I never get late to work. So you say get because the subject is I. Now, in Spanish, to make it clear, esos son los adverbios de frecuencia que ustedes van a utilizar. Lo que están expresando es qué tan seguido o qué tan a menudo ustedes hacen alguna acción. Entonces tienen always, siempre, usually, usualmente, normally, normalmente, often, a menudo o seguido, sometimes, algunas veces, occasionally, ocasionalmente, seldom, pocas veces o rara vez, hardly ever, and rarely, casi nunca o rara vez. También podrían ocupar almost never, que significa casi nunca, y never. Entonces repito el significado: always, siempre; almost always, casi siempre; usually, usualmente; normally, normalmente; often, a menudo o seguido; sometimes, algunas veces; occasionally, ocasionalmente; seldom, rara vez o con poca frecuencia; hardly ever, casi nunca; and rarely, rara vez o raramente. También pueden ocupar almost never, ya lo habíamos dicho, almost never, casi nunca, and the last one, never. Entonces, ¿con qué frecuencia lo hace? Y aquí viene la importancia de saber esto. Normalmente cuando decimos algo nosotros no nos ponemos a pensar. Al lado izquierdo ustedes tienen con qué frecuencia es eso. Si ustedes lo dicen always, significa que lo hacen el 100% de las veces. Si ustedes dicen usually, significa que lo hacen el 90% de las veces. Normally significa que lo hacen el 80% y así sucesivamente. Pero cuando ustedes están hablando, no se ocupa ese porcentaje. Eso es solo para que tengan una referencia, ¿sí? Entonces, uno cuando habla no se pone a pensar, yo lo hago el 80% de las veces, entonces voy a ocupar usually o voy a ocupar normally. No, ¿verdad? Uno no se pone a pensar en porcentajes. Entonces, lo que tienen que saber es el significado del adverbio para poder utilizarlo en cualquier momento, ¿sí? Ahora, la ubicación, y aquí viene la parte importante, la ubicación de estos adverbios de frecuencia, normalmente el 99% de los adverbios de frecuencia se utilizan en medio del sujeto y del verbo. ¿Sí? Estos van ubicados en medio del sujeto y el verbo. Veamos el primer ejemplo. I always get up at 5 o'clock. ¿Sí? Si vemos, tenemos always. ¿Y a dónde está ubicado always? Está entre medio del sujeto y del verbo. O si lo quieren ver de otra manera, antes del verbo. Si se les hace más fácil así, identifiquen el verbo y antes del verbo tiene que ir el adverbio de frecuencia. Lo mismo pasa en el segundo. He usually drives. Vean, está en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Normally checks, en medio de she y de checks. I often, entonces está en medio del sujeto y del verbo. She sometimes uses, en medio del sujeto y del verbo. I occasionally work, en medio del sujeto y del verbo. We seldom take, lo mismo. We rarely has, lo mismo. I never get, lo mismo. Siempre va a ir ubicado en medio del sujeto y del verbo, ¿sí? Ahora, esto es en el 99% de los casos que la ubicación va a ser así. Aunque hay dos adverbios de frecuencia que ustedes pueden ocuparlos antes del sujeto o en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Esos adverbios son usually and sometimes. Usually and sometimes ustedes lo pueden ubicar en dos posiciones diferentes. Y eso va a ser antes del sujeto, o sea que ustedes pueden decir usually he drives to work. O he usually drives to work. Ustedes también pueden decirlo con sometimes. Sometimes she uses the microwave. Or she sometimes uses the microwave. Entonces con esos dos sí pueden cambiar la posición. Con normally and occasionally también se puede hacer, pero ya normally and occasionally normalmente esos que terminan con como normalmente, ocasionalmente, que terminan con mente, ellos tienen diferentes posiciones, incluso algunas personas lo ponen al final, otras lo ponen al inicio, otros lo ponen en medio del sujeto y el verbo. Pero me pueden preguntar cuál es el más común. El más común es que vaya siempre en medio del sujeto y el verbo. es 80% de las veces más común que sea así, que vaya en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Entonces la mayoría de veces lo va a encontrar ahí. Pero si en un momento ustedes llegan a ver usually, sometimes al inicio, ya saben que sí se puede. Si en algún momento ustedes encuentran normally o occasionally al inicio, también saben que se puede. Si lo llegan a encontrar al final, también. Pero la mayoría de veces lo van a encontrar siempre en medio del sujeto y del verbo, ¿sí? Entonces por eso les decía, 99% de las veces el adverbio de frecuencia siempre va a estar allí ubicado en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Y el otro 1%, un verbo que es una excepción. Y ese verbo es el verbo to be. Con el verbo to be, ustedes no pueden tener al adverbio de frecuencia en medio del sujeto y del verbo to be. Aquí va a ser lo opuesto. Ustedes lo van a tener después del verbo. Entonces, ustedes no me pueden decir, yo siempre estoy en clases. Si usted me quiere decir yo siempre estoy en clases, usted no me puede decir I always am in class. I always am in class. No me puede decir esto. ¿Por qué no? Si nos vamos a la regla que dice que lo pongamos entre medio del sujeto y del verbo, sí, ¿verdad? Aplica. Pero estoy diciendo que el verbo to be es una excepción y aquí tenemos el verbo to be. ¿Cuál es el verbo to be? Am, is, are. Am, is, and are es the verb be. Entonces, siempre que vean el verbo to be, no pueden ponerlo en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Entonces, ¿cómo lo voy a hacer? Lo pongo después del verbo to be. Entonces, ¿cuál sería el correcto? I am always in class. I am always in class. And that is correct. I am always in class. Entonces, el verbo to be es el único que va a tener un adverbio de frecuencia, no en medio del sujeto y del verbo, sino que después. ¿Yes? Entonces, así es como utilizarían los adverbios de frecuencia. Decíamos al inicio de la clase que habían adverbios de frecuencia que eran generales y adverbios de frecuencia que son específicos. Todos esos que tienen enlistados aquí son generales. Always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, hardly ever, rarely or never. Ellos son generales. ¿Por qué? Porque yo le puedo preguntar a Edgar, how often do you drink coffee? Y Edgar me puede decir, I usually drink coffee. Entonces él me dice, usualmente tomo café. Pero me quedé con una idea general. Si Edgar me quiere dar una idea ya más puntual, queriéndome decir los días específicos o la cantidad de días específicos, él me va a decir posiblemente 5 veces a la semana, 5 times a week, o 3 veces al día, 3 times a day. Entonces ya ese decir el times ya lo hace más específico. Y solamente se los voy a mencionar porque más adelante ustedes van a ver ese tema. Pero si ustedes quieren decir una vez, ustedes van a decir once. Pueden decir one time y no hay ningún problema, pero la palabra once es más común que decir one time. ¿Sí? Entonces si quieren decir una vez a la semana, once a week. Once a week. Si quieren decir 2 veces a la semana, twice a week. Twice a week, 2 veces a la semana. Y pueden decir 2 times, sí pueden decir 2 times a week, pero es más común decir twice a week que decir 2 times a week. ¿Por qué? Porque cuando ustedes dicen once, es más rápido que decir one time. Si ustedes dicen twice, es más rápido que decir 2 times. Entonces para eso existe el once y twice. Ahora, ya a partir del 3, ahí sí ya no hay más opciones. Usted va a comenzar y usted va a decir 3 times. 4 veces, 4 times. 5 veces, 5 times. Y así sucesivamente. Hay una palabra que se dice thrice. Thrice significaría 3 veces, pero no se ocupa. En realidad no se ocupa. Ese thrice no se ocupa. Solamente once, twice sí es bastante común. Ya después del 3 para arriba, 3 times, 4 times, y así sucesivamente. Si quieren decir a la semana, a week. Entonces ustedes dicen once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Si ustedes quieren decir al mes, a month, once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month. Si quieren decir al año, a year, once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, and so on. Yes? So I repeat it. Always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, hardly, ever, and never. They are general frequency. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, specific frequency. Yes? The position is important, because if you say always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, general frequency is between the subject and the verb. Between the subject and the verb. But specific frequency is at the end. Si van a decir algo específico, si van a ocupar una frecuencia específica como once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, esa frecuencia va a ir al final de la oración. Ya no va a ir como el general, que el general va en medio del sujeto y del verbo. ¿Yes? Sino que va al final. Entonces ustedes pueden decir, I drink coffee once a day. Entonces ese once a day va al final. No podrían decir, I once a day drink coffee. I drink coffee once a day. Ese once a day iría al final. Yes? Questions?
Just I have a question in the frequently adverbs always. Can I place it before I am? For example, can I say always I am in class? Or have to be or must to be first I am always in class.
It must be after the verb be. I always go. In that case, the verb is go. But when you have the verb be, I am always in class. The only moment where you can use always at the beginning is if you have a comma. But the idea will be different. It's like when you
Okay.
want to emphasize and you say, always, I am in class. In that case, yes, because you're having a pause. Sometimes I drink coffee, or always I visit my friends. In that case, but that is not very often. It's not very often, probably once in a million, but you never say it like that. You always use the verb be and then the adverb. If it is another verb, first the adverb and then the verb. Yes? Normalmente no se ocupa, solamente cuando uno hace así como, usualmente yo voy a trabajar en la mañana, o rara vez voy al supermercado, en esos casos, pero eso pasa una vez en un millón, entonces no es como muy común que alguien haga eso. Normalmente se dice, yo rara vez voy al supermercado. So, I rarely go to the supermarket. Or, I hardly ever go to the supermarket. I often visit my friends. ¿Sí? Pero, como les digo, podría ser que en algún determinado caso ustedes lo tengan al inicio. Pero cuando quieren enfatizar algo, en esos casos sí. Y cuando tienen el verbo to be, nunca lo van a poder utilizar antes, siempre tiene que ir después del verbo to be. Siempre. I am always in class. I am usually late. I am normally busy. I am often happy. I am sometimes early. I am seldom. I don't know. I'm seldom sad. I am hardly ever. Let me see. I am hardly ever angry, and I am never a bad person. Yes, so like that. Another question?
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Another person with another question? No?
Teacher, dice de que normalmente es oye, el no sé qué es,
Frequency
más
verb.
verbo.
Mhm.
Pero, perdón, me dijo sobre una que puede ser al final. Ahí eso es lo que no comprendí. Que podría ser al final el frequency. Ay,
Ajá. Les decía que todos estos adverbios que tienen aquí, always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, seldom, hardly ever, never, ellos son adverbios o frecuencia general. ¿Por qué general? Porque si yo le digo a usted, fíjese que yo algunas veces visito un museo, pero si yo le digo algunas veces, esa cantidad no es específica, porque podría ser que para mí algunas veces es una vez al mes, pero podría ser que para Grecia, porque a ella le encantan los museos, para ella algunas veces va a ser 2 veces al mes, ¿sí? Entonces, esa frecuencia es general. Si usted quiere hacerlo específico, entonces específico ya sería una vez a la semana, 2 veces a la semana, 3 veces a la semana, 4 veces a la semana, una vez al mes. Entonces todas esas expresiones que digan once, twice, 3 times, every day, every hour, every year, todas esas expresiones que sean más puntuales, que digan la cantidad de veces que usted lo hace, eso va a ir únicamente al final. No puede ir en medio del sujeto y del verbo, ¿sí? Eso sería al final solamente. Y estos adverbios de frecuencia que son general, always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, y el resto, siempre van en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Les estaba diciendo que algunas veces estos pueden ir al inicio, pero nada más cuando usted quiere enfatizar algo. Los únicos que sí no es necesario enfatizar algo para que puedan estar al inicio son usually and sometimes. Ellos no necesitan enfatizar algo para que puedan estar al inicio, ¿sí? Y decíamos que normally and occasionally, esos dos, algunas veces usted lo va a encontrar en 3 posiciones diferentes, al inicio, o en medio del sujeto y del verbo, o lo puede encontrar al final. Pero ¿qué es lo más común? Más del 90% de las veces usted lo va a encontrar en medio del sujeto y del verbo. Entonces, simplemente sigue la regla de que los generales siempre van en medio del sujeto y del verbo. ¿Sí? Another one? No?
I have a question.
Edgar?
I have a question. Cuando quiero decir o responder en estos ejemplos, y quiero dar una respuesta negativa.
Okay. Interesting question. Normalmente uno ya tiene definido cuáles son positivos y cuáles son negativos. Entonces, si nos vamos a los adverbios de frecuencia, ustedes ya tienen always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, and seldom, que serían como positivos. Y para decir las cosas negativas se ocupa hardly ever, rarely, almost never y never. Ellos son de ideas negativas. Seldom todavía está en el límite entre decir si es más negativo, es más negativo que positivo, pero digamos que está por ahí. Entonces, ¿qué sucede? En el caso que usted quiera decir algo negativo, usted va a ocupar esos adverbios de frecuencia que son negativos, como en el caso de never o hardly ever. Y algo muy importante de aclarar es que usted no va a utilizar don't. Usted no puede decir, por ejemplo, I don't never, para decir yo nunca como cebolla. I don't never eat onions. No se podría decir así. Entonces me va a decir, pero don't es para decir lo negativo. Sí, pero el detalle es que como estos adverbios de frecuencia ya están expresando algo negativo, yo ya no le puedo poner el don't. Entonces yo no tengo que decir I don't never. ¿Por qué no? Porque never ya es algo negativo. Y si yo le pongo el don't, estoy haciendo algo que se conoce como double negation, que es una negación doble o doble negación, y eso no existe. Entonces es como en español. Ustedes dicen, yo nunca como cebolla. No podrían decir, yo no nunca. Yo no nunca como cebolla. No, ¿verdad? Entonces, yo casi nunca como cebolla. Tampoco no decimos, yo no casi nunca. ¿Sí? Entonces ya cuando ya tienen el hardly ever, never, esos son los que ustedes utilizan para hacer oraciones negativas. Y ya no van a ocupar ni el don't ni el doesn't. ¿Sí?
Teacher, but I can say it, I don't ever.
Yes, but ever is different.
Yes, but I use don't or not ever.
Yes, if you say ever, you have to use don't. Mhm. But if you say never, never is like if you say not ever. Not ever, never. So you cannot use don't because you already have not. Entonces,
Okay.
si ya tienen never, never ya es negativo. Hardly ever ya es negativo. Rarely también ya es negativo. Digamos que seldom también ya es negativo. Entonces, con ellos no necesitan ocupar don't ni doesn't, porque ya son negativos, ya tienen una idea negativa. Y si quieren decir I don't always, sí se puede decir I don't always, pero en realidad, ¿quién va a decir I don't always? I don't always play soccer. No encontrar a alguien que diga eso, a lo mejor una vez en un millón, pero
Yo casi siempre digo eso, o sea, eso existe en español, yo casi siempre.
casi siempre,
Casi siempre dice uno.
pero casi siempre es almost always.
O también se escucha bien frecuente, de vez en cuando.
Pero de vez en cuando es sometimes. Es que usted diga I don't always sería como ah, yo yo siempre no, y dice algo. I always don't play soccer. I don't always play soccer doesn't exist. So maybe for something negative, I always don't do the homework. Pero normalmente no se dice eso. Se dice una de las negativas. Con el que sí puede ocupar don't es con usually, y eso es bastante común. I don't usually play basketball. I don't usually play basketball. Yes. Entonces, ya están definidos los que son positivos y los que son negativos para que no se compliquen. Nunca van a escuchar I don't sometimes. I don't sometimes. I sometimes don't. Allí sí, pero allí la idea es diferente. Porque ya está diciendo que usted ocasionalmente o algunas veces no hace algo. No que no ocasionalmente no hace algo. Yes? So that's the difference. Another question? No? Okay, now let's see. I'm going to play a video. And on this video, you're going to find a little explanation or review before we start the speaking activity. In the speaking activities, you're going to use the frequency adverbs. We are going to use the general frequency, like sometimes, usually, always, hardly ever, never, and the rest. So I need that you pay attention to it. Just for the ones that arrive late, you can probably keep up with the class. And I'm going to project it in some seconds. And by the way, in Schoology, you're going to find Foro Evaluado in week number 2. Yes. Now you can see week number 2. Ahora ya pueden encontrar semana 2 en Schoology. Y ahí van a encontrar el foro evaluado. Y el foro evaluado tienen una pregunta. Y esa pregunta también tiene un ejemplo. Si se fijan, la pregunta es relacionado a lo que hemos visto este día. Dice, mention 3 activities that you do at work and their frequency. For example, I usually check emails. So you will describe the frequency you do some activities at work. And the activity that we will have after the video is, let's say, in other words, similar to what you have to type over there in the Foro Evaluado. So when do you have to complete Foro Evaluado? You have to complete it today. And it is easy. Yes? So you can complete it after class, or in the afternoon, or at night. So now I'm going to project the video and we can watch the summary of the explanation that I was giving to you. I don't know why the video doesn't open. Oh, now it is. But it's not playing, it's just the icon. I don't know why. I will open it again. I was supposed to project it only, but I don't know why it doesn't open. I will try it a second time.
Hi, this is Alex. Thank you for clicking and welcome to this beginner lesson on adverbs of frequency. Now, adverbs of frequency are words that tell someone how often you do something, okay? So today we will look at some of the most common adverbs of frequency. These are very, very important words when you are discussing routines with other people and telling them how often you do something. Okay, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the most common adverbs of frequency. Okay, there are others. These are some of the most common. So if you'll see, I have always, usually, often, sometimes, and never. Okay. So if we read these sentences, the first sentence says, I always pay my rent. When you always do something, it happens every time. You do it all of the time. So if you look at this arrow pointing up, we have from 0% to 100% of the time you do something. So if you always do something, you do it 100% of the time. So I always pay my rent. I always take a shower before bed. Okay? The next one, just below always, is the word usually. I usually get up at 7:30. So usually means like most of the time, okay? Usually 90% of the time I do this, okay? I always pay my rent. I usually get up at 7:30. Often, just below usually, I often read before bed, okay? So again, often, probably more than 50% of the time you read before bed. Sometimes means some of the time. So sometimes, probably 30%, 40% of the time, I sometimes visit my mother. You should visit your mother often, probably, if you want to be a good son or a good daughter. And never means none of the time. None of the time. 0%. Okay? So I never go to expensive restaurants. Okay, so once again, these are some of the most common adverbs of frequency. And what these words do is tell someone how often you do something. Okay, so again, always 100% of the time. I always wake up at 6 o'clock to go to school. I always have lunch at 12 o'clock. Usually, most of the time, 90% of the time, I usually get up at 7:30. I usually see my friends on the weekend. I often read before bed, just a little bit under usually. So over 50%, maybe 60% of the time, I often read before bed. Sometimes, some of the time, below 50%. I sometimes visit my mother. I sometimes get an oil change for my car. You should get it every 5,000 kilometers, but anyway. And I never go to expensive restaurants 0% of the time. Okay, so again, never, never, none of the time, sometimes, some of the time, often, not most of the time, just below most of the time, a lot of the time, usually, most of the time, always, all of the time. If you'd like to do a quiz on these words and adverbs of frequency, you can check out engvid.com. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching and take care.
Okay, so that was summarizing and checking other examples on how to use frequency adverbs. Just one thing, pronunciation for one of the frequency adverbs that is over there is often or often. So both are correct, yes? And often probably is more like American pronunciation. Often is more like British and emphasizing on the correct pronunciation. But you can also say often. Now, what are you going to do? I will give you exactly 5 minutes for you to write your frequency. What does it mean? I will share the book again, and you have to write one thing for each frequency adverb. So you have to tell me something that you always do, something that you usually do, yeah, that you normally do, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, hardly ever, and never. So you have to write your own examples, things that you always do, things that you usually do, normally, often, and like that. So, for example, in my case, I can say, I always watch movies on weekends. Yes, I always watch movies on weekends. Now, with usually, I usually drink water when I wake up. Number three, normally. I normally check my Facebook at night, often. I often listen to music when I take a shower, like that. Sometimes. I sometimes go to the supermarket, occasionally. I occasionally see my friends, seldom. I seldom, let me see, I seldom drink soda. I seldom drink soda. And I never smoke. I never smoke. So this is what you can do. You can describe all the activities, but you go one by one. Always, usually, normally, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, hardly ever, and never. So I will give you 5 minutes for you to write your own examples, and after that, I will tell you what we are going to do. So you can start right now. 1 minute. Okay, time's up. Now let's see. Let's imagine that I'm working. Douglas, do you have a question?
No, teacher.
Okay. So let's imagine that I'm working with Carla. Hey, and the rest of cameras, Jorge, the camera, pan dulce, sweet bread, Catalina, sweet bread. Semita is semita, so don't change it. But pan dulce, sweet bread. Jorge, the camera, Alfonso, Harrison, Edgar, the camera, Rigoberto. I don't know if you're still going to work or if you are at the office. Open the cameras. Okay, so what are you going to do? Easy. Let's imagine that I'm working with Carla. So Carla is going to tell me her frequency or her activity with the frequency always. I will hear what she says and then I will tell her what I do in frequency with the activity that she's saying. For example, Carla, tell me your first example. The first example you have?
Pero no sé si referí. I always work in my house.
Okay, I always work at home. I always work at home. At home. Okay, so I'm going to tell Carla about my frequency with her frequency activity. So I always work from home too. I always work from home too, or I always work at home too. Yes? Good. So I always work from home too, because I do it too. Si yo no trabajara siempre en casa, entonces yo le diría, oh, I never work from home. ¿Sí? Y luego yo le digo mi acción con always y ella me tiene que decir con qué frecuencia hace lo que yo hago siempre. Now, Carla, I always take a shower in the morning.
Mm.
And you?
Quiero ver. A mí igual. I always take a shower.
Okay, so she can say, I always take a shower in the morning too.
In the morning.
Good. Now, with the next adverb, Carla, the second one that you have?
Quiero ver. I raramente.
The second one.
I usually visit my sister.
I usually visit my sister. In my case, I often visit my sister. Good. Now I'm going to tell you what usually. ¿Por qué lo cambié allí? Porque yo lo hago a menudo. Ella lo hace usualmente, yo lo hago a menudo. Entonces, estamos viendo las actividades que yo hago, con qué frecuencia las hace ella y las actividades que ella hace, con qué frecuencia las hago yo. Yes? Now I'm going to tell you with usually, Carla. Carla, I usually check exams. I usually check exams. What about you?
Um, mm, 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 mm. I usually
Now, check exam.
no,
Usted va a reaccionar a mi acción.
usualmente no sé, no sé qué decir.
Yo
Check
le estoy diciendo
exam,
que yo usualmente reviso exámenes.
revise.
¿Y usted con qué frecuencia lo hace?
Ay, nunca.
Entonces, eso es lo que tiene que hacer.
Sorry, I never check. Sí, check
I
examen.
never check exams. Good. Now the next one, Carla. Number 3.
Ay, pero es que este sí no sé cómo utilizarle
Say
normalmente.
it.
No sé, ay. Bueno, ¿cómo se
Normally.
normally check check email. Sí,
Okay. So I normally check my email. I normally check my email. In my case, I sometimes check my email. Yes. Now, my information with normally. I normally eat some fruit during the day. I normally eat some fruit during the day. And you?
What is the meaning?
Eat some fruit.
Ajá,
Unas
sí.
frutas.
La fruta. Quiero ver, no sé, quiero ver. I always eat. ¿Cuál fue la otra palabra?
Some fruit.
Some fruits. Eat some fruit.
Okay, good. Now, this is going to be the first part of the activity. You tell your actions and your classmate has to react. Yes? You can use some expressions too. What are those expressions? You can say, really?
So,
Yes?
how do you say pacaya?
Pacaya is pacaya.
Pacaya. Okay.
Or papaya. Because if it is
No,
papaya, you also say papaya, but pacaya is pacaya.
no,
It's a
la
proper.
pacaya.
Yeah, I hate
Okay. Thank you.
So you have the word really. You can say it like that. Like in the case of Carla, I said, I usually check exams. And then she can say, really? I never check exams. Or maybe Rebecca is going to say, I never eat pacaya. And maybe Jorge loves pacaya. So Jorge is going to say, really? I usually eat pacaya. This is just an example. I'm not saying that he likes it, but maybe. Or another one that you can say is me too. Me too. Like you're surprised that you have the same likes. Maybe Rebecca says, I never eat pacayas. And then I can say, me too. I never eat pacayas. Yes, but in this case, it sounds better me neither because it is something negative. But just to give you an example. Yes. Now, this is what you're going to do. This is the first part. Second part. After you finish talking and saying the things, I need that you repeat one of the activities to your classmates, one by one. So, Carla, repeat your activities. El primer paso, hablado, decirle a su compañero y que su compañero reaccione con qué frecuencia él hace la misma actividad que usted hace. ¿Yes? Solo hablado. Terminan, una vez terminado, pasan a la siguiente parte. La siguiente parte va a ser que usted le diga a su compañero solamente las actividades de un solo para que su compañero tome nota. Pero, ¿cómo va a tomar nota? Carla, tell me your activities. Number one?
I rarely
No, number
work.
one. Number one was always.
Es que las hice así como que. I always work at home.
Okay, hold on, because I need to type it. So I'm going to write on my notebook or on my computer, I don't know. So we'll say Carla always work at home or work from home. Yes, so Carla always works from home. I use the S. Carla always works from home. Continue, Carla.
I usually visit. Quiero ver. No, espérame. Ya me confundí. I usually visit my sister.
So I would say Carla usually visits her sister, not my sister, her sister. Carla usually visits her sister. Continue, Carla.
Quiero ver. I normally check my my email, no sé, my email.
So I would say Carla normally checks her email. Yes. So I'm going to take notes about all the activities. This is the second part. First part is just speaking, giving information. Second part, you take notes about the activities of your classmates. How long are you going to be together? You're going to be together for 18 minutes. 18 minutes. So first speaking, giving information, reacting, and then copying the information of your classmates. After that, we are going to come back. I'm going to stop the session and you will tell me about your classmate. So enter right. Oh, just give me a second. Rigoberto, are you driving or you are at work?
Hi, teacher. I am in traffic.
So
And
you cannot participate.
como pueda.
Okay.
He estado escuchando toda la clase, no hay problema.
Okay, but it's better if you only listen because I don't want you to have an accident. So someone is going to work with me because you are 19. So one of you is going to work with me. I don't know who, but that person has to be with me. So Rigoberto will be only listening to what you're saying. So you will enter. Just give me a second. Right now. Enter, guys. Enter, Douglas. Douglas, enter, Douglas.
¿Sí?
Yo te los puedo ir diciendo.
Okay, Elida, you're going to work with me because Rigoberto is driving, so
Okay, thank you.
he can't take
Vamos solo a escuchar.
He's going to listen to us.
Nice.
Okay, Elia, tell me.
I always listen music when I work.
Listen to music. Listen to music.
Listen to music when I work.
Really? I never listen to music when I work because I have to be fast. Good. So I'm going to tell you about me always. Um, I always, I always send reports to my boss. I always send reports to my boss.
Okay.
Don't write anything. Don't write anything. Right now it's just speaking. In the second part, you write it.
I usually eat pizza.
Okay. In my case, because we are in quarantine, I hardly ever eat pizza. In the past, yes, I usually did it, but now I hardly ever do it. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Usted.
hmm. So you said usually.
Mhm.
I usually, I usually visit my mom.
Really. I live with my mom.
Oh, you live with your mom, so you always see her. Good.
I normally drink coffee.
Oh, I I almost never drink coffee. Almost never. Probably, maybe once every 2 years,
No.
or once every year, something like that. But it's not very often. It's not very often. The last time that I drank coffee, I guess it was like 3 years ago. Or
Why?
I don't know. It's not something that I need. So it's like soda. I drink soda, but probably, I don't know, maybe every 3 months or every 4 months. So it's not something that I love. I prefer something else like orange juice,
You're
or
very healthy.
I try to be healthy. I try to be healthy. Try to. Okay, so you said occasionally. Is that one?
Normally.
Normally. Well, in my case, I normally uh, watch movies related to comedy. So comedy movies. I normally do it.
Mm, I watch sometimes. No,
I
I sometimes watch uh,
comedy movie.
comedy movies.
What's your favorite kind of movie?
Um, Action.
Okay, good, 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 good.
Mm.
Next one.
I often read a book.
In my case, physical book. I never read a physical book, but I always read like ebooks. I always do it because when I have to teach something, I have to read books. So I read books, but on internet
Mm.
or PDF books.
Mm.
Yes. So you said, what was it, the adverb?
Often.
Often. So in my case, I often clean my house. I often clean my house.
I usually clean my house.
Okay, good. Next one.
I sometimes draw.
Draw. Do you say draw?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in my case, I never draw. In the past, when I was a kid, I was good at drawing. when I was a kid. I remember that I had a lot of drawings, but when I entered to high school is when I stopped drawing, and then I didn't remember. Xochitl is entering. Give me a second. I guess Xochitl is in the class again, so I will go and see.
Yo ahorita porque me siento bien cansada. Por eso es que.
Okay.
Te entiendo. Teacher, tenemos una consulta.
Hmm?
Vaya, queremos estar seguras de que vamos a hacerlo bien. Entonces, es, por ejemplo, empezar a decir mis oraciones y ella me responde. Ella copiaría lo que yo digo. Por ejemplo, I always cook for my family. Entonces ella coloca como, her always cook for her family.
She always.
She always cook for her family. Y luego yo espero a que ella me diga qué es lo que siempre hace para yo escribirlo de ella.
No, el primer paso era que ustedes hablaran y expresaran con qué frecuencia hacen algo. Si Carla dice, yo siempre tomo café, entonces usted le va a responder, yo algunas veces tomo café.
Okay. Ah, ya, okay.
Y de allí usted le dice a ella lo que usted siempre hace. Entonces usted le va a decir, I always call my friends. Siempre llamo a mis amigos. Entonces Carla le va a decir, de veras, yo casi nunca llamo a mis amigos. Eso. Entonces es hablado. Después que ustedes ya hayan terminado todas sus ideas, todos los adverbios de frecuencia, entonces ahí es cuando le van a leer a su compañero lo que ustedes escribieron. Ya no ha hablado, sino que se lo va a leer y usted va a ir copiando. Si ella le dice, I always drink coffee, va a poner, she always drinks,
drink her coffee.
Drinks coffee. She always drinks coffee. Entonces, eso es lo que tiene que hacer. Ahorita no tienen que estar escribiendo nada, es nada más estarlo hablando. ¿Qué es algo que siempre haces? Yo siempre bailo bachata. En serio, yo nunca bailo bachata. Entonces, eso es lo que tienen que hacer. Y de allí yo le digo, fíjese que yo siempre tomo un jugo de naranja por las mañanas. Qué bueno. Yo algunas veces tomo jugo de naranja. Entonces, quiero que las dos se digan lo que siempre hacen, pero que la otra persona reaccione también para ver con qué frecuencia lo hace. Y una vez que ya hayan terminado de decirse lo que hacen con frecuencia, entonces ya se lo leen a su compañero, lo que ustedes escribieron antes, hace como 10 minutos que escribieron, que les di su tiempo para que lo escribieran. Entonces eso le va a leer en la segunda parte, para que su compañero lo pueda copiar, pero ya cambiando el sujeto, ya va a decir Carla, ya no va a decir I. ¿Sí? Si Carla le dice I drink coffee, usted va a poner Carla drinks coffee. Si Carla le dice I take a shower, Carla takes a shower, pero con la frecuencia que ella le diga. Si Carla dice I usually take a shower, Carla usually takes a shower. Yes? Okay, continue.
Thank you.
Okay, Elida, sorry. But she was working with Carla and I had to explain what they had to do. So, what were you saying?
Sometimes draw, and en eso estábamos.
Okay, I sometimes draw. I told you that I never draw. In the past, I used to do it, but now I don't do it. I don't know how to do it. And let me see something that I sometimes do. I sometimes do exercise. What about you?
Okay. I never do exercise.
You never do exercise. Maybe walking?
No.
At least walking?
No.
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 Okay. Or stretching, yoga, meditation, whatever. No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Good. Next.
Um, I occasionally play violin.
Good. So you can play the violin. I never play the violin. I don't know how to play it. I can't play any instrument, but I would like to. But I would like to. When I was a kid, probably not a kid, but like a teenager, adolescent, my mother wanted that I learn how to play the guitar. And then I told her that I didn't want because in the past I remember that only old people play the guitar. And then I said, no, that is only for old people, for old men. And then she said, no, you can play it. It's only to play an instrument. And then when I was like 20 years old, I wanted to learn to play the guitar, but I didn't have time. So I never learned it. Good.
I studied for 1 year.
1 year. That's a
Yeah,
long
and
time.
I play piano too.
Good. Do you have a piano at home?
No, only practice in class. So it's very hard.
Yeah. I have a student, and one day he got his piano to the academy to play it. And I say that it's difficult because he has, I don't know if all pianos are the same, but basically they are made of wood. And it depends on the kind of piano because I guess you have another one that is no, how do you call it?
Teclado.
That you need to press something like with your foot, I guess. Is that one?
Ajá,
Necesitan que
sí.
presionar algo con el
It's
pie.
a
What is
it's a
that?
sustain teacher.
Sorry?
So that is a sustain
Sustain.
for the piano. Yes.
Ajá.
Okay, interesting.
I play piano too.
Good. So you see, two people play
Ajá.
the piano. Interesting. In my case, I never play the piano because I can't. Good. Now, you said sometimes, Elena?
Occasionally.
Occasionally. In my case, I occasionally I occasionally cook my food. I occasionally do it. Good. How about you?
Mm, I normally cook for all my family, for my boyfriend, for other people.
Everyone. Okay. Good. Next one.
I seldom answer calls.
But for work.
No personal calls.
Okay, seldom. In my case, I sometimes I sometimes answer calls because sometimes they are students or maybe people from the academy that want some information, so I have to answer. Good. And you said seldom. I
So,
seldom, let me see. I seldom go to the beach.
mm, why?
I like the beach, but I don't like to swim in the sea. I only like to go and see the sunset or the sunrise, but it's not something that I would like to go and swim. If there is a pool, I prefer to go to a pool near my house to swim in a pool. But the point to go to the beach is just to see the sunset and stay there and relax. But to get into the ocean, it's not a good idea, especially because I can't swim. I can't float.
Ah,
I can't float. I can get into a pool and I can swim underwater from one place to another one, but I can float. So I never get into the ocean. I can be, let's say, at the shore orilla, So I can be there, no problem. Maybe with the water over here, but I can get deep into the sea because it's kind of dangerous. How about you? How can you go?
I love go to the beach, but and I hate hot. So mm, and I am very alérgica.
Allergic.
Allergic. Entonces, no se me da como mucha picazón estar en lugares calientes.
So how often do you go?
But I go normally.
You normally go to the beach even if it is hot. And then the next day you are like this with rash.
In the last, quiero ver cómo sería. Fin de semana, los últimos 2 fines de semana he ido y ando una gran alergia.
The last 2 weekends.
The last 2 weekends I go to the beach.
I
So.
went to the beach. Okay, good. Next one.
I rarely dance.
Me too. I rarely dance. When I was younger, yes, but now I don't have enough time, so I don't do it. I rarely dance. And something that I rarely do too is that I rarely ride a bicycle.
Me too.
Yes. Good.
Because I don't have.
You have one. I used to have one, but I didn't use it, so I gave it to my cousin.
Okay. I never crashed the car.
I never do it. Good. Let me see something that I never do. I never ride a motorcycle. I never ride a motorcycle. I've been on a motorcycle, but as a passenger. But I don't ride a motorcycle, so I never ride a motorcycle.
Me too. I hate it because it's very insecure.
It's dangerous. You're right. Good. Okay, so I will give you only my information for you to take notes. So you write Juan and the S. I always, what did I say? I don't remember, but I will make them up.
Sends reports.
I always send reports.
Mhm.
The next one is usually.
Mhm.
I usually visit my mom, just to give you an example. I normally check check my Facebook at night. I often eat fruit. I sometimes receive calls. I occasionally
Sí,
call.
ahí tendré que agregarle la S.
Yes, you will write it.
Ajá, pero sería solo agregarle la S al final.
Yes,
¿Cómo se pronuncia?
receives.
Receives. Okay.
Yes, so you will say Juan. Usually, you say Juan sometimes receives.
Sometimes receives calls. Okay.
Next one, occasionally. I occasionally clean my house. Next one, seldom. I seldom go to the beach.
Seldom? Okay.
And hardly ever. I hardly ever drink coffee, I told you. I hardly ever drink coffee. And the last one,
Mm-hmm.
I never play the piano.
Play?
The piano. I never play the piano because I can't.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to main station. Okay, so Claudia, Grecia, and Harrison had problem with electricity. I guess the three of you. Maybe you live in the same area or internet. Harrison, what was in your case? Internet or electricity?
No, teacher, I have good my unit.
Who entered some seconds ago? Habían tres que estaban en espera aquí.
I
Grecia,
don't know.
Grecia, Claudia, and
Grecia era mi compañera y dice que se le fue la luz.
ajá, y Grecia.
Grecia.
Well, you will give me information about your classmate, or Jorge maybe. So you will give me information about your classmates. So let's start with Catalina. Give me information about the person you were working with.
Okay. The information is about Douglas.
Okay,
He always studies English. He usually watches TV before to sleep. He sometimes has lunch at 1 p.m. He hardly ever goes to the cinema. He never sleeps early on weekends and on weekdays.
okay,
Only
good. Only the pronunciation it is goes,
go,
go.
go.
Thank you. Now, Douglas, tell us about Catalina.
She always writes reports. She usually listens to music when she works.
When she works,
She works. She he never works from home. She seldom she seldom works after 6 p.m.
good, thank you. Let's see another person, Allison.
Can you hear me?
A little bit low, but yes.
Hello? I'm sorry, teacher. I have issues with my audio.
But I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
A little bit, but yes.
Person, he had over, uh, go to the church. Hello?
Can you repeat it?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Her son, he, uh, let me see the frequently because I don't recall how pronounce. Hardly, hardly ever, right?
Mhm.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Her son hardly ever go to the church. He
Okay.
always
Harrison hardly ever goes. Harrison hardly ever goes to church.
to church.
Mm-hmm.
He always drink a coffee in the morning.
Drinks.
He drinks. I'm sorry, I forgot the s at the end of the verb. I'm sorry. He normally check his emails.
Checks.
Checks her, his emails,
Mm-hmm.
and he sometimes visit. He never visits his grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and occasionally, I he occasionally is correct that pronunciation.
Occasionally.
Occasion,
Occasionally.
occasion. I'm sorry, occasionally.
He occasionally.
Okay, goes to the park.
Okay, good. Thank you. So that's the way that you do it. You have to use the S in the verb always because you are talking about another person. So that information that you have about your friends is the one that you're going to use tomorrow. So tomorrow you will use that information. So don't miss it. No vayan a perder esa información porque la van a ocupar mañana. Yes, la de sus compañeros. So the attendance, Catalina,
Present, teacher.
Sonia,
Present.
Ochil,
Present.
Jorge,
Present, sir.
Grecia,
Present, teacher.
Rebecca,
Present.
Elida,
Presente.
Rigoberto,
Present.
Alfonso,
Present.
Claudia, Douglas,
Present.
Carla,
Present.
Joanna,
Present.
Nelson,
Present, teacher.
well, he's there.
Can you hear me?
Oscar,
Present, teacher.
Ricardo,
Present.
Azalia,
Present.
Allison, and Monica.
Present.
Okay, so that's all for now. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you for being there and have a good day. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye, teacher.
Bye.